The match has finished Sheffield United 2, West Ham United 2. That was an incredible game of football, filled with incident. I've got a load of notes just behind me. I've literally filled up my whole whiteboard with notes from this, appalling, amazing, fantastic, brilliant, awful game. I think everything applies to this particular fixture. Now, let's start at the start. Where else can we? It was a really interesting game at the start, it has to be said. West Ham had played quite a weird formation that none of us were expecting. And I think that was Danny Ings playing number 10, Jared Bowen up front, who was very, very isolated. Maxwel Cornet was on the right and Pablo Fornals was on the left. I think I was pretty astounded at the start that Sheffield United did not get physical with West Ham. That's what I was expecting. The blueprint had been provided by Bristol City. They didn't do it. Look, don't get me wrong. By the end, Sheffield United had become very, very physical with West Ham, but we'll get to that later on. There's a lot of incident that happens between now and then. West Ham scored the opening goal. Really good work, actually, by Vladimir Soufal down the right. I'm not going to suggest he had his mojo back, but he got his kahunas back, let's put it that way. He sort of shrunk, we'll talk about that later as well, by the way. He sort of shrunk into himself, I felt, a little bit against Bristol City. He was back, he was battling a little bit too much. And, I thought he pulled the ball back really, really well. Good work from Danny Ings, who got a shot off. And the shot got a deflection. Now, what was really interesting here was just prior to that, Fornals and Maxwel Cornet had just swapped. So Maxwel Cornet had gone onto the left wing, Fornals was on the right wing. It was from that left position that when the ricochet came over from Danny Ings' shot, Maxwel Cornet finished really, really sharply. Very good finish. His first goal for West Ham. Brilliant. West Ham are 1-0 up. Now, at this particular point in the game, I've got to say, Sheffield United were really, really nervous defensively. I thought they were an absolute bag of nerves. But gradually, they sort of got their way back into it, although it wasn't the best goal in the world. What was interesting was you had Brereton Diaz. Of course, we've been linked with him for about 2 years before he went off and he went and played in Spain. You remember he scored against us last year when we played against Blackburn Rovers in the Cup. It's just one of those typical things. Diaz had not scored a goal all season. Well, of course, he was going to score against West Ham, but before that, he'd sort of been infected with the same sort of nerves and lack of confidence that had been sort of prevalent throughout the Sheffield United team. As I saw, it was sort of long ball had gone over, and what happened was Kurt Zouma completely lost his marker, and the guy put the header on goal. It was actually quite a smart save from Areola. Did as much as he possibly could. The rebound fell to Brereton Diaz. I thought he did really, really well, actually. Sort of 2 touches, and it was in the back of the net. And that was 1-1. And from that point, Diaz was instantly confident, just sort of gained a lot of confidence. And then he decided to shoot at times where before the goal, he didn't really want to shoot. Anyway, we get to half-time. If it sounds like I'm rushing through it, I am. There's a lot happens in this second half. Even though at half-time it just seems it's 1-1, second half, a lot happened. Start of the second half, Sheffield United took control of the game. West Ham sat back some more. And they started to swarm on us. There was one point, certainly, looking on the telly, where they had 67% possession. Now, look, I know they're at home, etc., but they're a poor team. It has to be said. Sheffield United are a poor team. I think they showed massive spirit at the end. Let me just get that right. But I do think they're a poor team. They're at the bottom of the league for one reason or another. And to allow them to take control was a bit of a weird one, actually, in the second half. But we do that, and we do that a lot. What then happened was a substitution midway through the second half. David Moyes took Maxwel Cornet off. Now, I'm not suggesting Maxwel Cornet was brilliant in this game, but he did get the goal. Whereas I thought arguably our worst player in the game, and I do say arguably, and I'm going to forget the senders of things like that at the moment. Arguably our worst player I thought was Pablo Fornals. I was amazed. I was amazed to see Cornet come off and scored a goal and not Fornals. But it was Ben Johnson coming on. Now, what then happened was one of the weirdest things I think I've ever seen, which was Ben Johnson played in central midfield. Now, we've seen this before. We've seen Ben Johnson play in midfield before, only as a substitute, under David Moyes. It wasn't great. Well, he was brilliant. Well, look, we'll get to that We'll get to that. We'll deal with Ben Johnson tomorrow because there's this whole contract thing that needs to be dealt with. So I looked at it, and do you know what? At that point, I thought, I got it wrong. Moyes has got this. Moyes got this right. I'm really happy when I look at something and, I hold up my hands. If I call it wrong and think, and I was looking at it thinking, what the hell? What's David Moyes doing? He doesn't know what he's doing. Actually, it turned out he did. I thought Johnson played really well in there, and he was actually going to go and play a part in us scoring our second goal to make it 2-1. There was a nice little bit of build-up on the left-hand side. Johnson played his role in that. Danny Ings got the ball, and lovely little bit of lovely turn, little twist, little turn, quick feet. He got hacked down for a penalty, and Danny Ings, we'll talk about him individually because he was my man of the match. I think he was also the commentator's man of the match as well. We won the penalty. Who was going to take it? We discussed this in the build-up show, didn't we? It was James Ward-Prowse, and he dispatched it absolutely clinically. Brilliant. 2-1. 2-1 to West Ham. And at that point, once again, it's always going to be tough when you're down the bottom because you've got the sort of all this nervous energy. You're confident, and then your confidence drops, and that's what we saw in this game. They started off really nervous. Sheffield United scored a goal. They became confident. Then West Ham scored, and that sort of zapped all of their confidence, really. And I think it was tough for them at that point. I mean, and there really was only one result, or so it seemed at that point, and that was just a West Ham victory. We were 2-1 up. We were cruising. They were shell-shocked. And that was that. And then I just felt at the end it turned into a bit of a scrap, and I think ultimately maybe that was what got the point for Sheffield United. Maybe it was the fact they didn't give up, the never say die attitude, all of that sort of stuff. What I will say is I thought Emerson was lucky not to have a broken leg. Brewster went in on him, two-footed, and I can't say any more than that. It was a disgusting challenge, really. He got sent off retrospectively through VAR. I think the ref gave him a yellow card, then had another look. When I looked at the screen, Brewster got sent off, deservedly so. Bad, nasty tackle. Then what happened was an absolutely bizarre thing, which was Vladimir Soufal got a second yellow card and got himself sent off. Didn't need to do it. That was stupid, and for different reasons. It wasn't dangerous like Brewster's was. It was just stupid. And you'd like to think the West Ham team might have learnt a little bit, bearing in mind we just had all that decision with Sai Benrahma, who made a stupid mistake. This was Vladimir Soufal's, and it was a stupid mistake. And I've got to say, bearing in, he's going to miss the next game now. Bearing in mind how well Ben Johnson is playing, I'm not entirely sure he's going to get his place back, actually. Anyway, there you go. That's what I thought of that. And then what happened from the very next passage of play? It wasn't directly from the free kick, but it was a handful of passes after that. What happened was the ball was swung into the box. Areola came fisting out of not like that. He sort of charged off his line with his fist. He was meant to punch the ball. He missed the ball, and he missed Oli McBurnie with his fist at least. But he sort of clattered him. He sort of body checked him. Knocked McBurnie over, and it was a penalty. The referee pointed to the spot, really. Now, it was clumsy at best. I saw David Moyes sort of complaining about it afterwards, or maybe he was complaining about that, or that Jarrod Bowen should have had a penalty. We'll get to that in just a minute. I don't know. I don't think we can have too much complaint, though, because what Areola wanted to do was jump at the ball and punch the ball. He completely missed it. So what he tried to do, he got completely wrong. If you're going to do that and you're going to knock someone to the floor, you can expect a penalty. Oh, well, so it would seem. Certainly. Well, anyway, it seems like we didn't get even-handed treatment. So anyway, it was a really, really weird thing. Areola, was he injured? I don't know. I don't really know what happened, but he stayed on the floor for a long, long time. He was subbed off, and Fabianski was subbed on at that point. And when I say at that point, I don't know, it was like the 97th, 98th minute, whatever it was. I mean, by the time the game finished, it was like 102, 103 minutes or something like that. Fabianski was subbed on to face a penalty. Well, I was going to say, it was McBurnie. There was a little bit of shenanigans in a penalty area, a little bit of kidology, which I don't blame them for doing, just trying to take the pressure off the penalty taker, McBurnie. McBurnie stepped up. And that was after we'd been, I think we'd been pressurising McAtee, expecting him to take the penalty. And McBurnie stepped up and he finished well, scored the goal. And you thought, that's it, the referee's going to blow the whistle. That's the end of the game, 2-2. But no, he didn't actually. We got sort of one more attack and the ball was swung in. So at this point, Ben Johnson stopped playing in midfield. He's gone over to the right wing. He's gone over to fill in for Vladimir Soufal at right back. He swung the ball over and... good ball, really good delivery, and it looked to me like Jarrod Bowen was just wrestled to the floor. He was. It was no that you will not find the manoeuvre that put Jarrod Bowen on the floor in the Football Association handbook. You really won't. You might find it in the UFC. You might. You may well. I think it's a wrestling move actually. And so anyway, so he was sort of Samoan dropped or suplexed to the floor. It was a penalty. I think they gave it for handball against Bowen, but at this point Bowen was being sort of muscled. He was at this point he's falling with a bloke on top of him. If you haven't seen it, how I described it is right. The bloke's on top of him, arms wrapped round him, falling on top of him. Bowen's falling backwards, and at that point, the ball's ricocheted onto his arm. We should have had a penalty. Whether we'd have scored that, actually, we probably would. Looking at how Ward-Prowse dispatched his penalty, we probably would have scored that. Probably should have been 3-2. In all honesty, if I'm being absolutely honest, as a West Ham player, West Ham fan. I couldn't even work out whether I was a West Ham fan or a West Ham player. Have you ever had that? Probably not. I think 2-2 was probably a fair result. That was an absolutely bonkers game. And you know that thing when they say, if you're asked before the game, would you take a draw? Well, I was asked before the game, and I did say that I wouldn't be totally unhappy with a draw. And I'm not. I think there's just too much incident in that game. It was quite entertaining, really. And I find there were a few players that didn't play particularly well. Not enough of us did. I think if we got out of this with a draw, it looks all right. We just need to get some players back. Now, we'll discuss that in other videos. I think that's really the point. I will just discuss a couple of players now, because I think it's worthwhile doing. There's so much incident. We've gone through 12 minutes already. Let's deal with Jarrod Bowen came back unexpectedly for this game. I think it was a game too early, but we sort of had to play him. And we'll see him a lot better. He was isolated for a lot of the game when he was up front. Better when he moved around a bit, as you'd expect. I think Mavropanos, to an extent, had recovered. He was very nervous at the start. It was almost what we were witnessing when you saw the game was his recovery from just an utter lack of confidence following the Bristol City game. So I think that was quite important to see. He wasn't brilliant, far from it. But I did feel that there was a bit of recovery, and there was a point in the second half where he clattered McBurnie and really bullied him, and I was pleased to see that. I think that was important. I've only picked him out because that's important. Mavropanos wasn't one of our better players. Not many of our players played particularly well. I should probably say that. Anyway, just so this video don't drag on, because you know what it's like. It's match day. You've got a lot of videos, a lot of West Ham videos to watch today, so I won't keep you any longer. What I will be doing is probably in about half an hour after you watch this, I'll be over on Patreon with me old man. We're going to do our Patreon podcast. We're going to do it live, by the way. So if you want to join us for that, in fact, we've got a free trial over on Patreon at the moment. You can come and join us for that if you want to. It's linked in the description below, patreon.com/HammersChat. What I must do is give a lot of praise to Danny Ings today. Danny Ings has, and I don't give Danny Ings stick. I just say when he plays poorly. I think he's a good footballer at the wrong club, and I think he's probably a very, very thoroughly nice chap. Today he played very, very well, and I make no apologies for saying so. He was my man of the match. He played in the number 10 role. He was instrumental in both of our goals. I thought he played well. He looked, on occasion, the one player capable of opening things up for us. Other players had their moments, but I thought in terms of a 90 minutes, and he did play. He was substituted off, but he played. He must have played 94 minutes. So he did his 90 minutes. He was the main threat. He was West Ham's best player over that period. So well done. And I think, I've got to say, I think I was quite ready, particularly at the point where it was 1-1 and Sheffield United were dominating the game. I was quite prepared to come on here and castigate David Moyes for, bad tactical decisions and playing this player or that player. Moving Danny Ings to number 10 bearing in mind all these players are out, it did actually work, I've got to say, in this game. It really did. His substitution did actually work. It did improve us. I'm talking about the Ben Johnson one there. And what I thought was utter stupidity, playing Ben Johnson in midfield. Actually, you know what? It turned out it actually gave us, funny enough, a little bit of drive in midfield. But we'll talk about Johnson tomorrow because there's a lot to discuss there, really. I think we could have won that game. And I think, bearing in mind all the players that are out, if we can get another player back before the next game, that'd be brilliant. I'm not sure if we can. If Paquetá's back before the next game, if we can get a signing over the line, which I hope we can. We got a nice big gap now. So, yeah, I'm positive. I'm actually quite positive about that. I'd have preferred to win, particularly given that we were winning right until the end. I do think I feel a bit robbed by the referee, but I'm not disheartened by what I saw, really. So I guess I'm feeling sort of positive. I've looked at the league. Yeah, you know, but it would have been nice to be 3 points behind Spurs rather than 5 points, but we're in a really healthy position in the league, it has to be said. I need to get something out of one of our next 2 games. But yeah, looking pretty good. I hope that's the last time we see that particular midfield in terms of Thomas Souček and James Ward-Prowse. Sorry, I should probably say that. It didn't work. But let me just say about Souček, I just want to say this. Whilst his passing was awful, his heading, they had a long throw strategy. His heading and his clearances nullified their long throw strategy. He did a number of blocks, a number of good tackles. If I was only going to assess Thomas Souček from blocks, tackles, interceptions, headers, he's had a really good game. From a defensive standpoint, he's had a really good game. So I just want to say that. I don't, you know, but in terms of like the 1-2s and the passing and stuff like that, it didn't work. Like, Thomas Souček, in many respects, physically did what he does in you know, been absolutely dominant in the air and that sort of thing. And I guess, you know, in terms of the set piece, in this instance, the penalty, James Ward-Prowse did what he does. Well, you know, well done. You know, they both did those parts very, very well. In terms of passing and controlling midfield, it wasn't great, and it did take our reserve fullback to come on into midfield to sort of give us control of that area, which I don't think is great. But anyway, there you go. It looks like we're going to try and solve that in the transfer window. Anyway, it'll probably, by the time I upload this, probably be more like 15 minutes before you get to join myself and my old man over on Patreon. So we're going to dissect the game. We're going to get his thoughts and maybe go into things in a little bit more detail. Thanks for tuning in. Link is in the description below for Patreon. If you've not subscribed to the channel, I don't normally say this stuff. I just put the thing go bing, and there's a little thing at the bottom of the screen. Very much appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel, if you've sort of enjoyed the review at all. Don't blame me, by the way. I'm not responsible for the draw. I wanted us to win. Really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Stick a thumbs up on it. That really helps as well. If you want to be really generous, you can share the video on your social media. That does the channel massive favours, actually. As ever, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.